Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 74 of the Blunt Talk Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the beautiful, warm, and comfortable confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey on this beautiful Labor Day weekend. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Substack. Guys, it's been a couple days since the last episode. A lot of NFL content to get into. This episode will be dedicated to the Bird Gang. Fly Eagles Fly. We're going to touch on a lot of the post-training camp news and notes. A lot of things, a lot of odds and ends of things getting touched up right before Game 1 against the Green Bay Packers next Friday night in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which I'm definitely souped up for. Can't wait. I'm not sure if you guys had even seen, but the Eagles have released on the official website yesterday the white and black uniforms with the black helmets. Totally excited about this game. Totally excited for what this team could potentially do in that game. The focus, just it's that time of year. If you're an Eagles fan, you already know this is what we fucking live for. We live for this. So, like I said, a lot to get into. So, hopping right into it. A lot of these articles, like I said, I'm going to have these posted in the links. As I do with every episode, I always post the article links to let you know where the content's coming from, what I've looked over and read. This article here is coming from ProFootballTalk.com, also CSF Philly, Quasi, but nonetheless. It touched on Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni actually spoke with the media at length. It's about earlier in the week, excuse me, I said earlier in the month. Earlier in the week, and he talked about a lot of different things, and more or less he was giving emphasis on his coaching philosophy and how he feels like there's a lot of things that he has to adjust and adapt to and change going into this 2024 campaign. One of the main things that he touched on, though, was his mindset on reacting to calls that he disagrees with. Now, it is well known, if you're an Eagles fan, it is well documented. Sirianni, you have seen him countless Sundays and days that games the Eagles have played during his tenure as a coach, where he is vehemently cussing out a referee, digging in their ass, tearing them up, use whatever adjective or cliche or soliloquy you want to use. Either way, point being, he's definitely feisty at a minimum when it comes to referees. So I give Nick Sirianni a lot of credit that it's something that he's working on. Guys, I keep saying this. He knows he's under the gun. Anything that's going to make him look good, tighten himself up, make himself look buttoned up, he's going to do it now. He knows the pressure's on. He's a professional. He understands what's on the line. His career is on the line. And at the end of the day, I really feel like it's great that he's seeing flaws within himself and he's trying to adapt. But make no mistake, it's great that he's seeing this, but the wins and losses is what count. Not getting blown out in the first round of the playoffs, that counts. Getting back a chance to get back to the Super Bowl and actually win it, that counts. So I give him credit, but as we already know, for him, the wins and losses are going to determine his fate. So give him credit that he's actually doing it, what he needs to adapt and change. But fuck does it really mean if he gets, knocked out in the first round or second round this year? Next thing I want to definitely touch on would be the Eagles and Sirianni's philosophy of not playing the starters in the preseason. Now, on the contrary with this one, I have definitely differed with a lot of the talking heads on television and mouth breathers here on YouTube who have argued with me vehemently that, as an Eagles fan, don't you think that Nick Sirianni should have played the starters during the preseason? No, I don't. His philosophy of doing this has results. Every year he's been the coach, this team has been relatively healthy. Minus last year. You understand that you're not always going to get away from that injury bug. You are going to get bit sometimes. However, Nick Sirianni's philosophy as far as getting these guys ready has worked every fucking season. There's not been a year where it's like, man, this team's starting off sluggish, man. And in all honesty, the last time they started off sluggish, I believe it was his inaugural season as the coach. They were 2-5. Everybody was calling for his job. Everybody's like, I don't know about this Jalen Hurts thing. I don't know if this could work. So, miss me with all that shit. We kind of, the propaganda and the hype at times towards Nick Sirianni is very severe. And I get it. There's people within the coaching circles and in the media that wants to see him going. They would like Bill Belichick to have that job or somebody else to have that job. Whatever. Point being of the matter is, though, this argument here, the media has no credence. Do you think that them going 10-1 to start the season was a problem? Because I don't. Do you think the year prior where they started off hot and had the best record and went to the Super Bowl, was that a problem? I don't. I don't believe that was a problem either. You know, and even when they started off slow, they got hot towards the end. So again, what it really boils down to for the Eagles is consistency, attention to details, and fundamentals. If they stick to those things, they won't have a problem. Not playing in the fucking preseason is not going to determine if your team's going to win a Super Bowl or not. So, anyway, media's crazy with the way they've been arguing that. I've seen that on countless networks. But nonetheless, third topic I definitely want to get into is Jahan Dotson. And Jahan Dotson has spoke to the media actually last Saturday after the final Eagles preseason game in Philly against Minnesota. And he also spoke to the media earlier this week. He touched on a lot of things. You know, I didn't really want to bog y'all down with too much of the rhetoric, but I wanted to touch on some of the key takeaways that I liked and saw from the interview. The first thing was his excitement with being with the new team. He stated that the only team he's ever known was the Washington Commanders, obviously the team that drafted him. You know, he's only known dysfunction. He's only known inconsistency. So breath of fresh air, new scenery, definitely something that I think will help him and definitely helped his numbers. The second thing he stated was he's never been on a team with this much talent, which is funny because it made me review the team he was on at Penn State where he had Saquon, which he was correct. Quarterback wasn't that good. Offensive line was okay. Defense was good. But, you know, a collective of talent. Best team he's been on so far. And, you know, as we all know since the Dream Team days, that shit means nothing. You have to ultimately show and prove on the field. So it's great. But it's definitely good to see that he's not blind and he realizes the task ahead of him. He said right now he's currently working on getting the offense down and, you know, we're more or less just focusing, trying to rear his game up to get ready for the game against the Packers. Completely understandable. The thing that I definitely wanted to touch on, though, was the last key topic from the interview that Jahan Dotson gave, where he said he was told by the Washington Commanders that he would not be traded. And this goes back to the thing that kind of bothers me whenever I'm talking about sports with people on the street or, you know, I get somebody that hits me up about an episode. The thing that I notice is, and even I was guilty of this at one point, I am a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan. I love my Eagles, win, lose, or draw, you know. But I'm going to give it to you straight, whatever. The thing that had hindered the Philadelphia Eagles 35, 40 years ago was the front office, was ownership. The thing that's not hindering the Eagles now, the front office, the ownership. The thing that I think we all conflate, though, is whenever it's time for a guy to get paid or a guy asks for restructure or a guy asks, you know, anyway he's asking for more money, he's being selfish. He's not taking the team into consideration. He's a diva. All these adjectives are attached to him. But the moment that a guy is expendable or a team feels like they can get something for him, he is gone in a heartbeat. So again, we have to stop having so much loyalty to the laundry and realize that these players, and it doesn't matter if it's Jahan Dotson, doesn't matter if it's Saquon Barkley, doesn't matter if it's Daniel Jones, doesn't matter who it is. These people are employees just like you're an employee at your job. Okay? When you want more money, do you have more loyalty to your job? How would you feel if Greg, you know, in the cubicle next to you came to you and said, hey, you know, Ant, listen, man, I know you're trying to get that raise and you know, more money, but, you know, that's kind of selfish, man. You didn't think about the rest of us. You would tell Greg to go fuck himself, and you would tell Greg, when you get your money, come holla at me. So again, I don't want to hear anybody come to me ever again about loyalty to a franchise as far as, oh, well, you know, this guy's being selfish or this guy's not producing. I'll admit, should Jahan Dotson's numbers have been better? Yes. However, playing next to Terry McLaurin, yeah, he was number 2. Numbers were all right, 500. Could have been better. More of a number 3 in that, putting those type of numbers up. That's why this trade makes so much sense with Philadelphia. However, though, the dysfunction, the inconsistency at quarterback, the ineptitude, I'm not putting that all on him. So again, be careful about that loyalty to the laundry. Pay attention to these people are human beings and employees too. And at the end of the day, that laundry, that team will be very quick to get rid of a guy the moment they feel they can get something better for him. The next thing I wanted to touch on was the practice squad. was guys that were re-signed after postseason cuts, the initial, cut down of the rosters, and were brought to the practice squad. And a lot of key names of guys that played throughout the preseason I was definitely happy to see back. Starting off, we got Oren Burks, linebacker that was signed from free agent acquisition from San Francisco, came over in the offseason. I like this guy. I like when I saw him on tape. Veteran backup linebacker, so he could definitely help there, especially with the way Fangio has the rotation of linebackers that he's running it this year, with the way he's running it this year, excuse me. He plays with special teams. He's definitely good there. So, this is definitely a good backup signing. I like that they brought him back. Paris Campbell, in all honesty, we all know that that's a familiarity signing. I mean, he hadn't even been healthy. He hadn't really shown anything or any reason to warrant another opportunity. But again, being in Sirianni's offense, best numbers he's ever put up in his career was with Sirianni. So it makes sense that they kept him on the practice roster. They kept running back Tyron Davis-Price. He put up, decent showing somewhat in the preseason. I liked offensive lineman Nick Gates. Was hoping that they definitely kept him, and they did. He's definitely going to get some playing time at some point this season. Knocking on wood, not wishing injury, but we know that football is a physical game. Guys are going to get injured. Offensive linemen, definitely, especially with the way, the physicality, the way, the Philadelphia runs, their running game and their offense. Yeah, Nick Gates is definitely going to see some playing time. So I'm glad to see that he was definitely back. Will Greer, not going to really see any playing time. He's just a guy that knows the offense, so he can help more of like a coach in the background. So Gabe Hall, defensive tackle, kind of been floating on the practice squad a couple of times with the Eagles. They brought him back. This signing I like because this guy I think has a lot of upside. E.J. Jenkins, tight end E.J. Jenkins, definitely excited to see him brought back. Old face in a familiar place, Jack Stoll. Jack Stoll, who left the free agency, went to the Giants, didn't make the cut there with the Giants, was brought back to Philadelphia. I like him there. Familiarity within the system. You got Calcaterra, who pretty much has, a.k.a. Farva, if you put it in the words of George Kittle, Farva, a.k.a. Grant Calcaterra, has assumed the mantle, that second tight end spot. However, God forbid, injury, anything like that, rotation, things like that, you got a guy that knows the system that can be in there and that can play. Dylan McMahon, who again was one of the surprising cuts that I saw during the initial postseason cuts. Was glad to see him back. Definitely saw a lot of upside with this kid. I think it was more or less just a numbers game, but good to see him back. Wide receiver Marcus Ramsey Jack Saint. He was also brought back. Safety Andre Sam, linebacker Brandon Smith, safety Caden Stearns, who the Eagles had acquired. Very much a guy I've talked on before previously on the show, has familiarity with Vic Fangio and Christian Parker's style of defense. Again, familiarity signing, practice squad, tucked them in. And also offensive lineman Laken Vakalahi. He was also brought back. And that pretty much wraps up as far as the guys on the practice squad. Now, this one was a bit of a shocker, but news nonetheless. James Bradbury, in the midst of practice Tuesday, suffered a lower leg injury. Put him out 6 to 8 weeks, which is tough. You kind of hate to see that. Though I'll admit, it sucks for him because, he was starting to develop as a safety, starting to get into that role, starting to get a familiarity with it, which was great. However, with the depth that they have at safety currently, McCullum coming on, you got Gardner Johnson back, Blankenship. I saw the video, practice video of Sidney Brown running full speed, coming off the ACL. Like I said, for now, it really won't mean anything. We'll see by the middle of the season, towards the end, if we desperately need him back. I mean, I really didn't even think he was going to make the roster, but because he transcended so well for the coaching staff as a safety, they kept him on. So it's tough to see him suffer an injury. Hope he's able to bounce back and contribute at some point. However, with that lack of speed, I'm not sure if he's even should be back out there. So might be the unofficial gift that all Eagles fans have wished for, that him not being back. Now with him being injured, might not even have to see him see the field. Especially if DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell and Rodgers and Maddox and these guys play the way we think they could play. He's probably not even going to see the field anyway, especially the safety position. This next article I definitely wanted to touch on. This one was actually per Tim McManus and, let me get the name correct, Marcel Louis-Jacques, who's a Dolphins beat writer. This was pretty much a joint venture article they did together. And it touched on Vic Fangio's old school coaching style. And the point of the article was, will Vic Fangio's old school coaching style mesh with his new school players. It was a great article. It was something I read midweek while I was on my break at work. It was a quick read, but it was a little lengthy. It wasn't, I won't lie to you, it wasn't a quick read. It was definitely about a 5-minute read, but it was a good read nonetheless. A lot of intel, a lot of information that was in there. I want to touch on some of the highlights and things that I touched on, things that I read in the article that I thought were key points that need to be spoken on. It was deep to me, first and foremost, that a lot of the veteran Dolphins players stated that Vic Fangio really wanted to be in Philadelphia. Now, if we remember how things played out at the end of that 2002 season, crushing loss in the Super Bowl to Kansas City, 38-35. We all know the details. Jonathan Gannon, bullshitting, not really indicating he's coming back, but agrees to deal with the Cardinals, which kind of left Vic Fangio in limbo, wound up making the way to Miami, becoming the defensive coordinator there. But it was definitely documented from, some Dolphins sources and Dolphins players that Vic Fangio really wanted to be in Philadelphia. He never really wanted to be elsewhere. He wanted to be in Philly. So that was definitely a key point I wanted to definitely highlight on. One of the big things, too, that was kind of referenced, loosely touched on throughout the offseason was Vic Fangio clashing with some of his players in Miami. And basically it stated that the whole instance or inference of that beef really came off coaching philosophy. Not him being a bad person or demonstrative, just more or less the coaching philosophy he has. Some of the players felt he coached his system and not to their abilities or capabilities. There was comments made by Drew Rosenhaus, of course. Cam Smith, posted the emoji of being unlocked, because he didn't play at all during his rookie season, saying now that with Vic Fangio going, he's unlocked. And there was also the funny video posted by Javon Holland where pretty much, it was a picture of a guy kicking rocks telling Vic Fangio to kick rocks. I completely get it. Drew Rosenhaus even stated some guys like Fangio, some guys love Fangio, a lot of guys didn't. It's okay. Old school guy, a little gruff. I get it. Here's what's funny to me though, right? When I hear things like that, I always like to take a look at the numbers. See if what they're saying backs up the credibility of, is his coaching style maybe outdated? Is he maybe not really realizing that his players have different capabilities and skill sets to his scheme? What is it really? So let's take a deep dive into those accusations of him, being a curmudgeon and a gruff and not really adjusting. Now, we all know the Dolphins defense was suspect going into last season, okay? Now, we're going to go off the complete season, the final numbers. This is the numbers I'm going to give you. Vic Fangio's defense last year for Miami ranked 10th in yards allowed, 318.3 yards per game. They were tied for 7th in takeaways, 27 in total. Now, the only argument I would have or anybody would have, they were 22nd in points. They allowed 23 points a game. Let's be for real. What that sounds like is a lot of bitching. It sounds like a lot of young guys not liking that old school style, not used to it, the game being a little different, the game being coached different, coaching philosophy. I mean, fuck out of here. If you're telling me this guy was coaching you hard and you weren't putting up decent numbers, then maybe you have an argument. But you're telling me you were 10th in yards allowed, 7th in takeaways, and you're bitching? Come on now. This is why you have to be, keep an eye on the Miami Dolphins defense this year. Anthony Weaver is coaching that defense. We will see. We will see if they ascend. We will see if they reach the levels that they say or think they can reach. It is going to be a true test because if you're telling me that was bad, that he was that bad and he got you that in one season, I'm very interested in to see what you're going to do this year. Hey, what's up? I know it sucks. The video just ended. But listen, you can catch this whole interview on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Links are in the description. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you. Have a great day.